Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here with us for this month's Stanislaus Green Team meeting. We're really excited to hear today's presentation, but we'd like to take a minute and do a couple of introductions for those who have gotten on already. We know there's a couple navigating in right now. I'm Trish Christensen, President and CEO of the Modesto Chamber of Commerce, and I would like to go over to Jason. If you could please introduce yourself and tell us who you're with.
Sure. My name is Jason Steiner. I'm sales manager at Summit Technology. We produce, maintain, rent, and sell our brand of power quality analyzers, traditionally for the electrical trade, to check the quality of industrial facilities power.
Awesome. Thank you. And Casey.
Yeah, hey team, I'm Casey Hogue. I run Serotonin Creative Consultancy here in Modesto, and we are a branding and marketing firm who specializes in helping companies with their sustainability and corporate social responsibility efforts.
Sir. Roger, could you introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Roger Graver, also with Summit Technology. I'm the marketing manager to Jason's sales manager. And as he said, yeah, we sell power analyzers and power quality analyzers. And we found the Green Team at the Central Valley Facilities Expo trade show. And so we're just here to kind of see what everyone has to offer.
Awesome. Well, thank you. These are monthly meetings, and over the last few months, this transition from virtual only to hybrid to whatever works for you, they've been a little bit up and down the last couple of months as people are shifting energies. So I appreciate you joining us. We tend to have 15 to 20 people on these, but we have had a couple where it's a few as well. But as I mentioned previously, we do circulate these on our social media and our website once we have it on YouTube. So take advantage of every opportunity to gain information. I'll do a quick plug if I can for our California Green Business Network Stanislaus program. We are working hard to get the word out countywide that we will work with any business and industry, regardless of size, to help that business get certified and land their green certification and brand on the California Green Business Network, a referral website essentially at the state level. Jolene is working really hard to get businesses through that process as much as and eager as they want to. We have a big lift. We've made a goal of ours to certify 30 businesses this calendar year. We're trying to get our first 15 through by the end of June. And we have several in the queue, but each one takes a different amount of time to complete. So if you're interested, let us know. If you know others that would be interested in getting information, please let us know as well. Jolene will be your point person on that. I will ask Madhu to introduce herself, and then Jolene can introduce our speaker. Oh, and Jolene, please, after Madhu introduces herself, please introduce yourself.
Okay.
Madhu, you're muted.
My apologies. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Madhu Singh. I'm the branch manager here at Bank of Stockton at the Dale Road in Modesto. I'm also on the board with the chamber. Glad to be on.
Thank you, ma'am. And Jolene, go ahead and introduce yourself and then your speaker.
Okay, my name is Jolene. I am the coordinator for the Green Business Network in Stanislaus and here at the chamber. And our speaker today is Brian Eagle from Glanris. Brian, did you want to give an introduction?
Well, I'll just jump in. The introduction is really in the presentation, so I'll just kind of jump in if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Good.
Okay. There we go. So and I want this to be interactive. So if you guys have questions, please feel free to stop. It's not meant to be a monologue, but a discussion and educational. So please stop me if you have questions. So at Glanrus, and I was asked, well, where does that name come from? Well, Glanrus is actually Gaelic, and in Gaelic it's Glanrís, which means clean rice. And so what we've done is we manufacture a water filtration technology that we call biocarbon through a patented manufacturing process we have that takes rice husks, the shell of the rice, and turns it into a water filtration technology. We'll talk about what that means. So why rice? Well, rice is special in a couple of ways. It has some unique physical and chemical properties that are important for us. It's very thin, which means that we can process it very quickly and at low cost. And it's also very high in silica, which means that we have an opportunity to be able to build some unique chemistry on that silica to allow it to do some unique things in water filtration, which we're going to talk about in a second. The other reason why we like rice husks is that it is the world's largest ag waste product. Over 220 billion pounds of rice husks are generated every year around the globe. And most of it today is either burned in the fields or hauled to the landfill to rot. So neither one of those are obviously very environmentally friendly. So we're doing something that converts it into a media that is. So we've gotten some nice press on this, but kind of to your point about the certification, and towards the end we're going to talk about carbon credits and what we do there. But it's very important for us, particularly in the water filtration world, to have a number of different certifications in it. The most important of which is this one right here, this green one right here, which is an NSF 61 certification. This means that we can be used to filter water for drinking applications, so potable water applications. We're also a certified biochar, which means that we meet certain qualifications for the durability and functionality of the biochar, which is important in terms of ultimately being able to claim carbon credits. So, okay, great, water filtration, tell us a little bit about why this is interesting. Well, today, I think pretty much everybody's heard about activated carbon. It's used globally as a water filtration technology. If you have a Brita filter like this, about 40% of what's in there is activated carbon. Oh. Activated carbon is really good for removing organic contaminants, but it does nothing to remove dissolved metals like lead. So if you want to remove dissolved metals, and if you were to pop open your Brita filter there, you'd see about 60% of what's in there is what's known as an ion exchange resin beads. And that's what you see in the picture here to the right on your screen. So these are a petroleum-based microplastic product. They're very good at removing metals, but they're also a persistent plastic. And this is exactly the kind of thing that we need to get rid of in our world, because this is ending up in the oceans, in food sources, et cetera. So what's really unique about what we've done is we've combined the organic removal of activated carbon with the metal removal of an ion exchange resin bead in a product that's 100% organic and very inexpensive to produce and sell. So we'll talk about cost in a second, but compared to ion exchange resin beads, we're a lot less expensive. So we remove metals like lead, copper, chromium. If you guys remember Aaron Brockovich, that was the chromium issue. Hexavalent chromium was what's leaking into the water out there. We remove all of those heavy metals, but we also remove organics. And we have a couple of other neat features, which we'll talk about in a second as well. So who are we talking to? Who are we selling this stuff to? Well, right now, particularly out in California, we're selling into manufacturing firms that do something with metals. They paint, they plate, they have metals in their wastewater, and they need to remove them before they can either reuse that water, which is our goal. Ultimately, we want people to be able to pump once and reuse multiple times. The beauty for most of these industrial companies, manufacturing companies, is that you can reuse that water indefinitely. All you have to do is just clean it. So what we're trying to do is give them low cost, sustainable tools to be able to do that. So for those companies that are have metals in their wastewater discharge, great target for us. We're also seeing a lot of environmental remediation firms picking us up because we're a broad spectrum metal removal media. So it means that we're not specific to just lead or just copper or just chromium. Whatever's in the water, we're going to take out.
Question?
Yes, absolutely.
What do you do with your media after it's saturated with the wastes?
Yeah. So the same thing that they do with the media that they're using today to filter the water, it goes to a landfill. So the only difference between our material and other activated carbons is that when you put our material in the ground, it qualifies for carbon credits, which you're not going to get with traditional activated carbon. And the reason that you're not going to get that with traditional activated carbon is that most people don't understand most of the activated carbon that's used today is coal-based. So you're literally digging the coal up out of the ground, activating it, which is a process of opening up the pore structure of the carbon, and then it gets used. So again, not a very green process. We really need to sort of stop digging coal up out of the ground and instead start taking biomass material like what we're using and converting that into the carbon that can be used this way.
Thanks.
Yep. We've also got a number of municipal applications. As I mentioned before, we're NSF 61 certified, which means ostensibly that we don't leach anything toxic into the water and that we can filter it to EPA standards. So we've got a number of tests going on right now with municipal applications where we're doing both we're doing both wastewater treatment, which is really removing the hard to get at metals. And we're also doing some what they refer to as end of pipe or tertiary water polishing, which is removing the chlorine or some of the chlorine in the water. Because typically, if you douse it with a heavy dose of chlorine, you're going to disinfect it. You kill all the bad stuff in the water, and then you need to take it out because nobody wants to drink water that smells like pool water. And that's where activated carbon can come in to both remove the chlorine and deal with the taste and odor issues associated with that. Residential applications, the same thing that we talked about before, except we're doing something actually pretty interesting in the residential market, which is, remember your Brita filter? Today, when you get done with the Brita filter, you're throwing the whole thing away, plastic and what's in it. Remember, 60% of this is ion exchange resin beads. So what we're doing is we're working with a group now that has patented a Brita filter that has, you can unscrew the top, and inside that is a biodegradable pod, which will contain our material. So now you have something that, you've got the reusable outside shell and the inside material. Again, it's 100% green. When you're done with this, you can sprinkle it on your lawn or whatever you want to do, throw it in the trash, and that will become a carbon sink.
Wow.
We talked about cost comparison. So, we're about the same cost as traditional activated carbon, but, we can be 1/10 to 1/15 the cost of ion exchange resin beads. Now, some of the specialty ion exchange resin beads have much higher capacity, but even there, on the more expensive ones, we have about a quarter of the capacity, but we're still 1/15 the cost. So on a cost per gallon of water filtered, we're much less expensive. So, in terms of the overall advantages, we're, the key element is we're a hybrid. We can remove the organics and the metals in one green sustainable media. We're cheaper. We operate in a much wider pH range. Typically, if you want to work with an ion exchange resin bead, you have to adjust the pH to get it to a normal pH range. You don't have to worry about that with us. We're a drop-in replacement. So, most when you look at industrial filtration systems or even municipal systems, these are big tanks or big troughs filled with this material. You don't have to do anything different. Our stuff just goes right in there. So there's no hardware cost associated. We can use the existing equipment. Earlier on, we were talking about the shape, the physical shape of the hull is very thin. The reason that that's interesting is that when you take a look at granular activated carbon, think about it like a sponge ball. And most of the surface area, which is what they use for adsorption, is on the inside of the sphere. So over 99% of the surface area is inside the sphere, not on the surface. So what happens is if it gets coated with grease or oils, you don't have any access to the inside. So for us, we're like a sheet of paper. So, we still have the surface area available, even in the presence of oils to remove organics. Again, with ion exchange resin beads, because it's a plastic, if there's solvents in the water, you can actually break down some of these specialty resins. Doesn't affect us at all. We're made in the US. Over 60% of the activated carbon that we use today comes from China. So, huge supply chain issues associated with that right now. The stuff that doesn't come from China, the very specialty ones, what you would typically see in this come from Sri Lanka. And, anybody who's shipping anything internationally today knows how bad that is. And we were talking to a customer recently who, before the pandemic, they were getting container loads in from Sri Lanka and they were paying about $1,500. The last one that they got in February, they paid $22,000 to bring in a container. So, and I'm talking shipping costs. So, it's a nightmare right now. So having it grown in the US and frankly grown locally, because we're trying to take this globally, and that's the beauty of rice. It's grown all around the world. So we can produce this locally in all of these regions. So it uses less energy to produce this stuff. So back to the, the coal or the stuff that's in here, which is typically coconut husks are used for this. They cook those, they have to take the husks, grind them. Anybody who's ever tried to open up a coconut on the beach knows how hard that shell is. They have to grind the husks, and then they cook it in ovens at 1,000 degrees C for 12 plus hours. We can produce our activated carbon in 8 to 10 minutes at 400 degrees C. So it uses about 98% less energy to produce it than this other medium. Any questions on that? I know I'm sort of rambling here and throwing a lot of stuff at you, but any questions on that? No?
Yeah, I mean, to me, I'm a sales manager and I'm a consumer. I'm saying to myself, there is no reason why municipalities, anybody would not use this. I don't see it. I mean, there's got to be a shoe dropping somewhere. What's the downside?
There really isn't. I mean, again, we're a new company. We're a startup. So we just started shipping this in September. We've already got 17 customers and 4 municipalities that are looking at this. So the water industry, though, the water industry is a still pond. It is not a rushing river. They do not move quickly. They do not move quickly and break things because that's what happens when they.
Yeah, I mean, quickly. Sometimes when you change, something can go wrong, and if you screw up somebody's water supply, you're done.
Right, and that's exactly what happened at Flint. They changed the water source. They used a different chemical. They didn't understand in shifting to chloramines. They didn't understand what that was going to do to the calcification on the inside of the lead pipes.
Yeah.
And it literally etched the calcification out of the inside of the lead pipes and was pulling lead out of these pipes and into the drinking water. Wow. So I get it. You don't want to do anything that could potentially harm people because
if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
And that's exactly what I hear every day. It ain't broke. I ain't fixing it. Thank you. Goodbye. But here's the, what's starting to happen. And this is, I think, sort of a good thing, is, and we'll talk about this more a little bit later, but certainly with the infrastructure bill that has been passed, a lot of the funding, part of the for these upgrades that people want to do, you have to, they're requesting some sustainability measures or enhancements in that. And this is where we really have an opportunity with some of these people to work. But what we're saying is in the water industry, you start with a test because they're like, yeah, I don't believe this. And then we do the test and they're like, oh, it works. That's cool. Okay, well, let's move it to maybe it just worked because we did a small amount. So let's do a bigger thing. And then we do a bigger test and then it works. And then, they go, okay, well, let's do a pilot. And then we do a pilot and they're like, okay, well, let's let that work. Let's let that run for 6 months or so, just to make sure that they're in, And so this is what we see is that they're not really, the switching costs are really just entropy, as you said, it ain't broke. And they're really not rushing to solve problems that they don't have. But I think this is starting to change. Again, we're making some headway in these markets, and it is good. And when you look at applications like this, these are markets that we can really control because we can market this directly and accelerate its penetration, at least into the residential market. But this is small tonnage, high dollar per pound stuff, right? The tonnage, if you want to get up into megatons of use, it's really in the municipal sector. Right. And it's going to take years for us to really crack that, but that's okay. I mean, we just got a plan for that.
Right. Wow.
So as I mentioned, we've got a 60,000 square foot facility. That's what's behind me here. We've got one production line operational right now, and we've got the ability to do about 3 tons a day. Our current supply, we're partnered with Riceland, which is the largest rice co-op in the United States. They're an equity partner with us in this, and they've got the ability with the current supply that we have at this one mill right over here to do 2,500 tons a day. So pretty substantial growth opportunities here. Today, we're shipping super sacks and cubic foot boxes. A lot of people, when they want to trial stuff, they want to do it in 2 or 3 cubic foot boxes of material. We've got 4 patents right now, 2 in the US, 1 on our process, 1 on our material. We also have a process patent in Japan and China. And we have a number of other international patents pending. I don't know what the patent in China really means, but we have one. We have a lab here, so we have on-site analytical capabilities to do mostly QA work. So we're analyzing every production run that we do for quality assurance. This was one of the big issues that we faced with people, is that they were concerned that there wasn't going to be consistent quality coming from a biomass product like rice hulls. I don't know why they think it's going to be more consistent coming from coal, or coconut husks, but okay. So we have a lab here. We're also working with 2 major universities on developing enhancements to the product. We have 2 working in the lab right now, one that's specific to targeting arsenic and phosphate removal. The other one has about 10 times the capacity of what we have right now. One of the other interesting things, again, as we're waiting for the water industry to pick up on tonnage, is that, again, back to what I was saying before about rice husks and why they're interesting, they're very high in silica. So when we process our material, it's about 50% silica and about 50% carbon. And silica is sand, right? I mean, that's what silica is. So there's been some interest in using our material as an aggregate in concrete and in cement. Certainly the biochar itself, we're doing stuff from a soil amendment standpoint. The soil amendment's actually very interesting, particularly for the farmers in our neck of the woods here, because this biochar, which is what they call biomass plant material that's been converted into a carbon, actually has some very unique properties in terms of for soil. It retains water. So you actually use less water, and you have to water, you can water less. So you can have significant water savings. That's something that should be obviously very interesting to people in California and in other places which are water stressed right now. But it also retains the nutrients, the nitrogen, the phosphates, et cetera, and makes that available to the rootstock. So that's very interesting. And certainly lots of applications there. And when it comes to asphalt, here's one of the really interesting things is that, which I didn't know until quite recently, is that most asphalt, 35% of asphalt is recycled. It's a whole bunch of stuff in there. You see when they go to pave a road, they scrape off like the first layer, the first inch or 2 of the road, so they can put the new paving on top of that. They take that back and add it to the stuff that they're going to put back onto the road. And in that, they also dump asphalt shingles, and they're looking at taking the material from us that's been used for water filtration and putting it into the asphalt. And our material bonds with those metals, so it's not going to leach it out there. And I was sort of worried about the safety implications of that, because certainly for soil amendment, we would only use material that hadn't been used for water filtration. So new material would go into soil amendment. But with asphalt, if you're scraping up that first inch of the road, well, what's on that road? Well, all the lead from the leaded gasoline that's in there, all the stuff that's leaked out of every truck that's driven on that road. I mean,
Rubber from tires.
Yeah, you're not going to go out and lick the road. It's not a sanitary thing. And frankly, our material as an additive in that can help to bond with some of the other potential contaminants that might hit the road surface. So we're doing some tests right now, which are actually pretty interesting, which would mean that we can take our material after it's been used and be able to use it as an aggregate for asphalt, which means you're going to reduce the amount of sand that they're having to use, which is an important thing from an environmental standpoint, because it's getting harder and harder to permit sands. And our material actually strengthens the asphalt. And the testing that we've done already shows that we can reduce rutting on the asphalt. And of course, because we're a carbon negative material, it would also qualify for carbon credits. So lots of interesting ancillary applications for this that we had no idea when we started the company. We talked about carbon credits, which is getting a lot more attention these days, but all that really is these voluntary carbon markets are people trying to support new technologies that will pull carbon out of the normal carbon cycle and put it back into the ground where it can be sequestered. And that's what we do. So we take a material that would either be burned in the fields, which produces carbon dioxide, or left to rot, which produces methane. Instead, we pyrolyze it, turning it into a stable carbon, which we then ultimately put back into the ground. So when it goes into the ground, it stays in that carbon format, like coal, for hundreds to thousands of years. And it's that aspect of putting it back into the ground and leaving it there is called carbon sequestration. And that removes it from the normal carbon cycle, which means that which pulls it out of the air today and allows the existing carbon cycle to be more efficient at addressing the carbon that remains. And it's such an interesting tool that the most recent IPCC report identified the production and use of biochar as one of the top 3 tools that we have at being able to address climate change. And what's exciting about that is that when you take a look at some of the other tools that they have on there, things like active air scrubbers, and you guys might have seen there's been a lot of talk about a company up in Iceland that raised $650 million to pull carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere. And it's great. I'm glad that they're doing it. Hopefully that will help. But that cost is over $1,000 per ton of carbon. If you want to get to gigaton sequestration, which is where we need to get to if we're going to, stop or reverse in some way climate change, you're talking about trillions of dollars in investment. Ours costs nothing, literally zero, because we're using it for water. The water and other applicants for this material will pay, it's actually very little, for the material, And then when it goes into the ground, there's virtually no cost associated with the carbon sequestration. So we've gone through that life cycle assessment, which is the first step in analyzing your production process and taking account of every bit of energy that's used from when we pick it up to when we drop it off. And that whole process has been determined to be carbon negative, which means we actually produce less carbon. I mean, we sequester more carbon than we use to produce it. So that announcement actually just went out yesterday. So we've gotten a little bit of press on that. So that's us and what we do. I know I ran through that pretty quickly and through a lot of stuff that a lot of you guys may go, I don't know what he was talking about, but that's what we do. So thank you for having us. I hope that was interesting from a green standpoint, because we think we're green in lots of ways, not just because we're carbon negative, but also because this is a nature-based solution.
Absolutely.
Any questions?
I love it. Everything you
Great
just
stuff.
shared is so interesting.
Thank you.
You got my wheels turning on an opportunity to have you back. And another broader audience, because we're working towards an event concept right now. And so if you'd be open, I'd love to invite you back to participate in something like that. And I'd love an opportunity at some point to introduce you to some of our utility focused people here in our community and see what we can do to help spread the word around here. Is fascinating information. So
and I'll tell you, we're again, I'm sort of a rising tide guy, right? I mean, when I was looking at your membership base there are a lot of almond growers, and you can do the same thing with almond shells. Now, I don't know how, I know that you can turn that into a biochar. Again, almond shells have the silica, so you can't do some of the stuff that we're doing on the water filtration side, but you can do the things for soil amendment and some of the organic removal on water. And it just, if we turned every bit of biomass material, every bit of ag waste that we have, whether it's food that's not going to go for sale, which can also be carbonized, almond shells. Think about it. Think of all the stuff that you grow out in the valley there, and all that waste product. Instead of burning it, if you pyrolyzed it and turned it into these carbons, you will pull a significant amount of carbon out of the atmosphere, and it can be used for all of these very positive aspects. It's a very exciting technology that, frankly, it's pretty new in terms of the sophistication of some of these new kilns to be able to produce it cost effectively. But it's a very simple idea that has, we think, significant ramifications globally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got a question. Brian, this is really exciting stuff, Brian. I'm kind of with Jason. How are you getting the word out? How it seems like you guys should really
said the guy with the advertising agency.
Right. I mean, I'm just curious, like, are you, I think there's a lot of upside with the residential as well. I'm personally interested in that side of things. Obviously, you're looking for larger scale, but I mean, let's just say it, like, how can we help you? I feel like everyone on the call is sort of would like to champion your cause after hearing what you're up to.
Well, thank you. Yeah, we're a small team. We should be doing more in getting the word out right now. And we probably need a lot more help. But again, It's early days for us, but definitely you've got my email address is up there. It's simple, brian@glanris.com. Feel free to email me and we can chat about next steps.
Yeah, that's exciting stuff. And from a technological standpoint, who do you see as your competition? Just traditional filtration systems, or are you just blowing open a whole new category?
Yeah, it's a good question. Partly because we've got, we have multiple markets that, suddenly seem to be interested in what we're doing. But certainly in the water filtration world, we talked about them, activated carbon and ion exchange resin beads. Those are the two things that we replace. So they are our predominant competitors in this space. And we've got, it's easy for us to talk about how we can compete with them. It's just entropy, really. It's just, as Jason said early on, a lot of these guys look at it and go, well, it ain't broke, I ain't fixing it.
Yeah, they don't want to risk their jobs. Southeast Asia comes first to mind only because I'm a layman in this situation, but so much rice is grown in Southeast Asia and they've got issues with groundwater and sewage, and it's not as industrialized, generally speaking.
I know, and we've already gotten requests for partnerships in the Philippines, Indonesia, Vietnam.
And you produce it right there locally. And
we could. As a matter of fact, we could. And
wow.
We're talking to all those guys, but again, we're a small company, right? So, what we really need is, to do that kind of stuff, we're going to have to staff up significantly, which, means we need some significant investment in it. To get that investment, we need to get some more of these sales so that, we can show the revenues there. And I think we'll get there. It's frustratingly slow for me because, I think from a planetary standpoint, if we don't want to be the lobsters in the pot, which is kind of what we are right now, slowly heating up and getting redder and redder, you got to start moving quickly. And, technologies that are looking, that cost trillions of dollars and take tens of years to implement, that's not going to get us there. You need simple solutions that are, there's no green premium and there's no behavioral change required. Because if you go out and tell everybody, hey, you got to stop driving your car and bike to work every day, you may get some people. But if you say, use this instead of this, same functionality, use it the same way, no behavioral change required. That's what to me, that's the way that you've got to get these solutions out there. People are not going to, stop driving cars. And it'd be wonderful if that was the world that we lived in, but we don't. And, particularly if you got to commute 15 miles to work every day, you're probably not going to do that on a bicycle. You're still going to drive a car. And so, again, you just have to find the solutions that people can implement in their daily life without major behavioral shifts. That's how you can get adoption quickly. And that's why I think something like this is simple, right? Because, to us, this is the fastest path, to some significant revenue in that space, because, there's no behavioral change required.
That's the filter that fits into everyone's Brita, same thing,
yep.
Just with your
and
technology
and the pure filter as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, the difference is this one unscrews, right? So you're not throwing away the plastic every time.
Right. That's exciting.
And this has the filter pod in it. And so
it reminds me of the refillable Keurigs.
It's exactly. It's where the idea came from.
Right.
And if you guys put inline filters for refrigeration and for houses, I'm always changing the fridge filter every 6 months, always 6 months, but you change that and
I don't know what I did with it. I have our LG refrigerator carbon block filter.
Oh, there you go.
I think it must be in the conference room. But yeah, we're working with other folks on that. We don't make carbon blocks, we just make the media. This will be the first product that we'll actually look at partnering with them to make ourselves, because we can accelerate it that way,
That's cool.
So yeah, thank you.
Very fascinating. Madhu, you had a thought?
Yeah, I was gonna tell Brian that as a granddaughter of a rice farmer back in Fiji, information that he shared was just fascinating. So, wow.
Where's your grandfather's farm?
It was in Fiji, Brian.
Ah.
Yeah. And as a little girl, I helped plant some of that rice too. So that was kind of fascinating.
Do you remember what they used to do with the husk that they threw, that they would take off the rice?
You know what? If I'm right, I think they probably mixed it back with the soil, or filled up mattresses.
There you go. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there
Had a few uses.
Yeah. It's the putting the raw husks back in the soil, has some benefits. Pyrolizing it and then putting it back in the soil has a lot more benefits, because when you don't pyrolyze it, you don't open up the pore structure to hold on to the water and the nutrients, which is what makes it, which again, it's less important for rice because you're flooding the fields. But for a lot of row crops, and particularly for a lot of these high value crops, orchards and like the almonds that we were talking about here, you can significantly reduce the amount of water required because it'll hold it, and it'll hold it near the rootstock in and around the tree, so that when you're irrigating, you're not irrigating, all the stuff that doesn't need to be irrigated. You're just getting the water to where the rootstock and the plant needs it.
Yeah, I don't think back then, we're talking over 50 years ago, that they had that, or even knew about all the technology, or even cared.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, but the thing is, here in the States, we don't have to economize, so to speak, as smaller countries like Fiji in the South Pacific. That you have to use everything down to the nth, to the dust of whatever you're doing, because
Right.
your resources are limited. Here, we have unlimited resources that we're getting from other cultures and other continents, and we're not going to be forced to do what Brian his company has. But smaller countries are going to say, well, you know what, we have all this waste and we can turn it into this pyrolyzed product. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
We really should do it too.
Yeah, I know. I mean, we have a lot of interest internationally. It's just, we're here.
Right. No, I got you.
It'd be great if we could get this going here in the United States. And you're right. We think we have unlimited resources.
Oh yeah, that's why
we
the
really
air
don't.
quotes.
The air quotes, yeah. No, I mean, you're right. I mean, we got to get going, but here's how you can get going without having to change behavior, which I think is where you can accelerate adoption. Yeah.
List of names in my head of businesses and people I think need to hear your story is growing as I'm just sitting here listening. So we'll definitely be following up and see if we can't help spread what you're doing here, at least within our community. We'd love to see you grow.
Great. Well, in a couple of weeks, I was supposed to be out there this week and next, and unfortunately had a death, so we had to change plans. But I do hope to actually get out there. I've got to be in San Francisco. There's a couple of Sand Hill Road folks we need to go talk to, and would love to come over and see you guys in Modesto and follow up on that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. There's a few things I'd love to explore with you. So if that works out and we can connect in person, it would be a fabulous conversation. Thank you for that.
Great. Absolutely.
Well, we're coming
right.
up on our hour. Is there anything else you want to add, Brian?
No, thanks for your time, guys. I appreciate it. Thanks for the insights. I hope that was informative for you guys. And it wasn't a waste of your lunchtime. So
No, not at all. And I'm sorry, this happened to be one of our smaller turnouts, but like I said, we do spread the wealth, and we'll invite you back again in another way. And Jason and Roger, really nice to have you as new attendees. Come again, please. It really does. It's a mix of people each time. And Casey, always nice to have you. Thank you for coming back. And Madhu, thank you for always being the board member that supports this and attends this one. I know you really like all the information you get. So great session.
This was
today.
exciting stuff. Thank
Yeah.
you. Really, really good stuff.
Gonna watch for the IPO.
well, thanks, guys. I appreciate your time.
Thank
All
you.
right.
And
Thank you.
All right.